Welcome to PBT Extra. I'm Corey Robinson, joined by the one, the only Kurt Helin. Kurt, happy 4th of July. What did you do this weekend?
The actual 4th was relatively mellow. Spent it with my wife mostly, but 3rd of July went to a big event in Long Beach, fireworks over the water called Bang on the Bay. Friend had a house right near the water. Great event, just a great event. Hanging out with people, having a nice glass of wine, sitting on the water, watching the fireworks. It was a really good 4th. What about you? What'd you do, Corey?
Well, it was very mellow, very mellow. I don't like parties, and I don't like loud noises. I don't like crowds. So this holiday isn't really the best one for me. So someone asked me, "What are you gonna do this holiday?" I was like, "I'm listening to Maurice Ravel. I'm gonna listen to Daphne at Chloe in my apartment and read Dante's Purgatorio." So that's what I did. But I did do a little bit. I dipped my toe into like the festivities. I went to the Mets game. Actually, I went to 2 Mets games. I went to Rucker Park to go watch some basketball, some street ball, and so I did a little bit of the crowd stuff, but for the most part, I was just listening. I started listening to Ravel because Frank Sinatra was on Johnny Carson, and Johnny was asking him, he's like, when I was a kid, you were the soundtrack to a lot of my date nights, and he's like, I'm just curious, like, what do you listen to when you want to have a date night? And Frank said, the real jazzy stuff, like Ravel's Daphnis at Chloe. So and Debussy's Sunken Cathedral. So I immediately Googled that stuff, and I've been listening to like the best recordings all weekend long to see what Frank listened to. It's pretty jazzy.
That's actually interesting. That's a really Johnny Carson, by the way, underrated interviewer. Just as somebody who had studied interviewing and tried to be less bad at it, and like Johnny Carson he's
the king of the late
quietly really good at interviews. How was Rucker, by the way?
Yeah, Rucker Park. I mean, I gotta say, I've been to Dykeman. Dykeman was wild. I went a couple years ago, Kurt, and it was everything you imagine. I mean, like it was like high school football in Texas, but like in the bleachers of like a random, underneath the subway, like up in the upper Manhattan. It was amazing. Kids, old people were selling drinks out of their coolers in the stands. There was just like waves of smoke. I don't know what they were smoking, but it was just very much like DJs on the court. I mean, it was just like crazy.
Yeah.
I went to Rucker expecting something similar, and it wasn't there. And I understand that the NBPA recently renovated the courts because they felt like it was in disarray. And it was a shame that the mecca of street ball courts in the world was in that condition. I went, and it still felt like there was not the soul that I expected Rucker to have. And it was really disappointing for me. But I mean, hey, it's basketball history, so I enjoyed it watching where Dr. J played and Will Chamberlain played. All the greats went through that court, but it just didn't feel the same.
Even recently, I mean, KD has gone there. A bunch of guys have gone and played at Rutgers. So yeah.
It was definitely it was on the bucket list. So I did it, and now I think the next thing this week I'm probably gonna go see the games at West Fourth.
Nice.
Just do your pilgrimage. Every time I travel, me and my family. I don't know why we're always drawn to basketball courts. So I see all the best street. I remember seeing the street courts out in where was that? That was in Greece. I saw the street courts in Athens and Jerusalem. In South Africa. So everywhere I go to all the street ball courts. So
that's nice. Actually, I remember playing pickup in Hawaii, just at a random court in Kauai, like near the water. We're like, hey, some guys playing. Let's just jump in. Go.
Yeah, and you can't beat it. No. But we had a very busy extended 2 weeks since you and I last talked. One, Victor obviously came to San Antonio. Very happy about that. The other things that have happened. Wow, free agency. We're waiting for Chris Paul. It happened. You went to the Warriors. I mean, we can go down the list. I can name some free agency stuff, or you can just tell me of some trades and free agency that you thought was interesting. Where do you want to go?
Well, let's start with, the biggest one I think that's going to possibly inflect the top of the East the most is the Celtics, right?
Yeah, Porzingis going there.
With Marcus Smart going out, and I'm not sold, Corey. Like this looks great on paper, and I might be wrong. Maybe if Porzingis plays like he did last year, and he's essentially a better version of Al Horford, that's a really good pickup for them. They've still got. They don't need a ton at the point because if Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are clicking, you've got that on the wing. Like I get it on paper, but man, this was a team that just wasn't tough enough. That just wasn't mentally and physically enough to get past the Heat. The Heat wanted it more and drove past them. You took Marcus Smart out. He's just been the heart of the team, and you're replacing him with Porzingis. I'm just not sold, Corey. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know that they got postseason better out of this. That's at least how I'm seeing it.
It's an interesting argument. I mean, look, I thought that was a lot to give up. I agree with you, Kurt. I mean, I know you can't touch Jason or Jalen, right? So I understand that's off limits. So your most valuable piece, and Porzingis, he was the unicorn, top draft pick. I understand that different teams have built around him, and he's coming off his best season, in a long time, doing maybe ever. But 24-8. So he's putting up numbers, but that Washington team was not good. So the numbers did not move the needle for them. So to think that he would be like a Drew Holiday type of figure or something like that for this. Or like a Chris Middleton type. I'm trying to think of like an example, like that kind of figure for this Celtics team. I think that's a lot to give up for Marcus Smart, and I agree with you. I don't know if they move forward. I think they kind of move backwards. My one issue with Porzingis is he's unbelievably talented, so unique. But the reality is that he puts up numbers. Even in Dallas, he was putting up numbers next to Luka. They were losing, putting up numbers. In New York, putting up numbers in Washington. I feel like he's like the most effective, I would say the most efficient and visible man I've seen in the NBA.
Yeah.
Like puts up crazy numbers, does not affect the outcome of the team, and that to me is alarming. So I don't think this is a good move for the Celtics.
No, you are not the first person to think of him as an empty calorie guy, and we'll see if that's the case. Which ones grabbed you? Like what jumped out at you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Chris Middleton going back to Milwaukee is interesting.
And Brook Lopez.
To me, yes. So Middleton coming back on that 3-year deal and netting him like $30-something million a year. That's interesting because he's been injured a lot. and I understand you want to keep that core together. I mean, I'm just being real. I'm just being realistic here with you, Kurt. Giannis is the crown jewel for sure. They found their big three, but it's hard enough to keep them together. You saw that around the edges. Milwaukee, I thought, has done a fantastic job bringing people like DiVincenzo in or Allen in, people around the edges to help get them better, and PJ Tucker. But the issue is that if Middleton isn't healthy, right? Like that's so that to me is an interesting to reward him after him not being there for the past couple of years. I thought that was an interesting move.
I'm with you. I think though I liked the way they did this in one sense. Middleton's on a 3-year deal. Brook Lopez at age 35 is on a 2-year deal. So this isn't. They're not locked into this forever, right? Like the pivot has to come because that is just that team is getting older. Like you can see the decline, the clip, the downside is coming. But for a couple, all that said, they had 58 wins last year. And if Giannis doesn't get hurt in that first round against the Heat, is it a different conversation? I like their moves in that sense. I think they were just too good not to run it back. But I agree. That they didn't. I like that they didn't lock themselves in long term because there is a hard pivot coming for that team in a few years. So,
yeah. And then one thing that I thought was really fascinating, Kyrie with the Mavs on a 3-year deal. You look at these numbers for me. Fred VanVleet's making more than Kyrie. I thought that was interesting. But the whole thing with the Mavs, to me, this is like desperation being played out. Kyrie is unbelievably talented, and you thought it was going to change your fortunes, in the postseason last year when you got him on a short-term rental, which was essentially a distressed sale, right? I mean, like Brooklyn was like, what are we going to do with this guy, right? So then you got him. You thought it was going to make you into a playoff team. You didn't even make the playoffs, which was just like shocking, right? I mean, it's just like what happened with the collapse in Dallas. So now to then get him on a 3-year deal, to me, this is like, I think it's a kind of a desperation move and understanding that, hey, look, how long can we keep Luka happy before Luka starts wandering? And that's essentially what I'm looking at here. And it's like, this is a $126 million game. Like it's insurance. Like Luka, please, we're trying.
Do you hear that ticking? Do you hear the clock ticking in the background?
And the crazy thing is, like, Damian Lillard was like, he's like the one guy you think, okay, like, I understand something had to change in Portland, but he was the one guy that's like, no, I want to retire as a Portland Trailblazer. I'm never going to change. And like, even he changed his mind after a decade. So my point, and he's still young-ish. So my point is that with Luka, like, I mean, you don't know how much time you got.
Yeah. And we've kind of buried the lead on the offseason to this point in a sense that we haven't talked about Luka. We haven't talked about Lillard and Harden, but let me quickly throw one more shovel on top of that. If we're going to bury it, I'll tell you an under the radar move I've kind of liked. Like, nobody's really talking about it. I think Cleveland got with Max Strus at the wing. They didn't have shooting and some defense at the wing. They made a couple of moves this offseason to fill in at the three. I think that combined with the lesson of the playoffs and like how hard you have to come and how focused you have to be, I think they have positioned themselves to take a step forward. They paid a good amount of money for Max Strus, but I think he was the best fit for them, and that he's kind of two-way. He's there in the big moments, 40% guy from three, will space the floor, can defend a little. I like that move as a fit next to, look, the other four there. They've got Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, who's ready for another step forward, I think, at the four. But they've got that as the front court. You got Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland in the backcourt. I think it's a team poised, and I think Strus could be the kind of glue guy that really helps them. So I think that was kind of a sneaky under the radar move that Cleveland could be a little better than we're giving them credit for, because we kind of wrote them off after the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you. I think Max Strus earned that contract. So, I mean, congratulations. I mean, he's been playing well. The other one I want to draw your attention to, because let's just do it. So, Damian Lillard requests a trade. And this is in the wake of Portland not trading that pick at the draft. They went and got Scoot Henderson, and, within like a week, it seemed, Damian Lillard was like, okay, I want out. What was your first response to this? Because I know that you have been holding him up as the Sterling of loyalty in the NBA. So I'm curious to hear.
But I think it just had gotten to the point where he had told them, like, we need to compete, and I don't totally blame Portland here. The offers that were coming in, if you believe in Scoot Henderson in particular, who I'm high on, we've discussed this. If you like him, the offers were like, I know that there was some discussion I don't know that it went very far, but like, all right, what about Paul George? 33-year-old, needs a contract extension, injured a lot, Paul George. Like, and the offers weren't better than that. So at that point, you just take Scoot. Like, it's still like, I don't think they had a choice. I also think Lillard, ultimately, this was what he had to do to win. And now it's going to be a while, Corey. I've been talking to sources the last couple of days, just talking to people around the league and sources, and they're saying relax. Like this weekend will be the earliest we probably see something. Now, stuff changes fast in the NBA, so my guess is always that it will be while I'm in transit to Summer League, because that's the one time I can't get to Wi-Fi. So like, it'll be whenever it's least convenient for me. But like I was told it's not going to be fast, because this is going to be a 3 or 4 team deal. And the challenge becomes Portland doesn't want Tyler Hero back, because they've got Anthony Simons, who's kind of the same player on kind of the same contract. So they don't really need him. But now you're trying to get third teams in, and like one person was explaining to me, like, Brooklyn would be a perfect facilitator. They would be happy to be in this. But Brooklyn wants to get off of – everybody's got their own agenda. Brooklyn's case, they would want to get rid of Ben Simmons. Well, I don't want Ben Simmons. If I'm Portland, I'm like, that's probably worse than Tyler Hero. I don't know that I want 2 years and $78 million of Ben Simmons. So every team you're bringing in as a potential third, San Antonio gets mentioned, Oklahoma City, other teams. There's a whole bunch of teams, the Clippers, a whole bunch of teams come in as a possible third destination. Everybody's got their own agenda, and it's complex. It's going to end up being a 3 or 4 team deal, maybe more, probably 3 or 4 team deal. And it's just we might be into next week before this thing kind of settles down.
What what do you think he could demand in a trade package?
That's the problem. I mean, he is still 32 points a game, all NBA player last year, still near the peak of his game, if not at it. So that's where somebody like Brooklyn can come in, as if you can convince him to go to Brooklyn. Brooklyn can, thank you to the Durant and Kyrie Irving trades, they could throw 5 first-rounders at it. They could throw 4 first-rounders, and they've got some young players on that roster that are kind of interesting. Like, they can make a better offer than Miami's straight-up best offer right now is Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, 2 first-rounders, and a swap, and that's not going to be enough. And so now you're just getting a third team in. I think they want to accommodate Lillard, and also Lillard's people are being, oh, you don't want to get him. They're trying to scare the other teams off. If you try to trade for him, he's not going to be happy. He's going to be a disgruntled superstar. Corey, can you picture Damian Lillard as the disgruntled superstar?
No, but it's an interesting way to think about. It's an interesting way to think about leverage. What I think personally is, I said this a while ago. I think Portland, because of this impending sale, they were going to have to make a change, right? As far as like they gave this thing a run and went to the Western Conference Finals, like they made the playoffs 8 times in a row, whatever. They tried to put around, some pretty good players around Damian Lillard. They got a guy who's on the 75 anniversary team of the greatest players in the history of the NBA. Like realistically, you can't really ask for a lot more than that. Maybe a coach of the year, think about a couple things that you could really ask for as far as like, we give it a real try. And my point is that they gave it a real try.
Yeah.
And so the sale, as we've seen with other teams, a la Phoenix, as soon as the trade happens, as soon as the new ownership comes in, it's like, hey, we're looking for reasons to move on. And I think this was kind of like a little preemptive move on the ownership side to kind of force Damian Lillard's hand a little bit. Same thing will happen with, I'm just showing a different league, but remember when the Packers brought in Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers was like, wait a second, what does that mean for me, right?
Yeah.
And eventually, after some time, it led to him leaving to go to New York for the Jets. And I do think that's very similar here, where it's like, look, you're welcome to stay as long as we want. We want you to retire here. Even the GM said, we want Damian Lillard. We don't want to trade him. We want to build a team around him. But the reality is you just got Scoot Henderson at number 3. And it's very clear where the future of the franchise is going. So Damian, you can make a decision. We don't want to force you, but it's time to start packing your bag. So that's kind of that's the way that I read this.
I will say this. I'm wondering how much that GM would love to be able to pull back that $160 million to Jeremy Grant. That's
the thing that blows my mind. This is why I have them in my jukebox in a little bit. But the preview is, you can't say we're going to field a competitive team and then do the things that they're doing. Yeah. To me, that is just very confusing.
They are. We'll get to them in a second. I will say, by the way, everybody's favorite dark horse in the Lillard conversation, Utah. They have picks. They have players.
Great.
He played his college ball, remember, at Weber State.
Wow, yeah.
So that's the popular dark horse. I don't know that he wants to go back. Again, if he wants to contend, as much as I like the idea of Lillard with Lauri Markkanen and everybody think they've got a nice team there, but I'm not sure they contend. So I'm not sure that he's going to be able to sell that one at least yet, but that's everybody's favorite dark horse, if not the popular third option. So we'll see.
It's a fun fan fiction. The other one I want to ask about though is James Harden, because this to me, this is mind blowing. It's just mind blowing because it's like Joel Embiid just won MVP. You just got Maxey extended. I mean, like where else are you going to go? As far as I just don't understand, but he wants out after being there for a very short period of time, after forcing his way out of Brooklyn to then go to Philadelphia. What did you think about this? Where is he going to go now? What's available?
Yeah. And he opted into he had to opt into his contract to make this happen, which gives him leverage. I mean, poor him. He's only making $35 million and change this year.
But I want to be fair to him because he did leave like 10. He has
he left
$15 million.
And he left a larger extension to Houston on the table, right? Like he's left a lot of money on the table to get where he wants to go. But he can't be extended. So that's his leverage. He is going to be a free agent a year from now. And the leverage is if you send me, if I traded somewhere, don't trade for me if I don't want you, because I won't resign there and you'll be left with nothing. But the flip side of that is this is his third trade request in less than 3 years, like just about 2.5 years, 3 trade requests. So we'll see. I will say 2 things that I do know. A, the target, he wants to go to the Clippers. The Clippers would like to get him. And they've got the pieces. I think there's a deal to be made there. Whatever it ends up looking like, Clippers will have to put Terrence Mann in the deal, who's a nice young player, but they'll probably get it done. The other part of that is, I've been told that's the second domino, because Lillard is the first domino. The Clippers would love to be in the James Harden sweepstakes. The Damian Lillard sweepstakes. But right now Lillard's pushing for Miami. The Clippers are willing to wait this out. They're like, hey, you know what? We'll wait because Lillard's a better player. So if we have any kind of shot, we'll wait, and then we'll deal with Harden. And on the flip side, we know Daryl Morey waited out. He did it with Ben Simmons. I mean, remember how long he waited on that Ben Simmons deal into the year? So,
I mean, and that affected the team dramatically. Yeah. So he's shown that he's willing to wait. I just don't understand this whole thing with the James Harden request. And I really think this is going to be I think it's going to have an interesting effect on a lot of these negotiations moving forward, because yes, you have player movement, but at what point are teams saying, like you're seeing even in free agency, a lot of these are 3-year deals, 4-year deals at the max, right? Because everyone knows that in 3 years you could have 3 trade requests.
Yeah.
So it's like, why would I even pay you that much money? Let's do a 2-year deal. Second year's a player option. It's really basically the NBA is becoming like 1 or 2 year rentals that are at $30 to $50 million a year. And then when the new CBA comes in, I don't even know what these prices are going to be out of this world, right? So I don't know how this affects the league.
Yeah,
I am curious to hear your thoughts though on the Rockets. What did you think about Dylan Brooks on a 4-year, $80 million deal, and Fred VanVleet, huge splashy signing, 3-year, 130. Sorry, he went somewhere else. But what do you think about Dylan Brooks going to the Rockets? I just want to say that for a second.
No, and Fred VanVleet, 103 years, 130 to Houston too. Look, they did what they said they were going to do, which is pivot towards winning more games and get better and get in some veterans. And VanVleet, I think, works for them. Can be a floor general and play off the ball. If you're keeping the ball in Jalen Green's hands. Jabari Smith takes a step forward this year. I like him. Hopefully he kind of takes that next step for them. But Corey, how good are they? And I mean, how good, and not only how good are they, how good are they going to be in 3 years?
I don't think they'll be very good.
Yeah, I think they'll be okay. I think they'll be good. Not great. So we'll see. Dylan Brooks, by the way, I mean, I get it. You need defense. You were terrible on that end last year. $20 million a year for 4 years he can't shoot. He is hard to play in the postseason because he can't shoot. That was one of my least favorite contracts of the offseason. I think that's a lot of money for a guy who has not been able to stay on the court in the playoffs and can't shoot. So how did you feel? I mean, you're close down there. How's the reaction been in Texas?
I mean, I've been in New York, so I don't really know.
That's true. Well, you've got Texas ties. I just assume it. Yeah.
I got Texas ties. It's true. Yeah. I personally, like I said, I think they overpaid, and I don't think they get very, very good. I don't understand. I understand VanVleet's been playing well, but I don't understand that contract whatsoever. I think this is a continuation of just bad decision making by Houston. I don't understand the past decade in Houston, to be completely honest with you. Okay, so why don't we just jump into the jukebox?
Let's jump over to Corey's jukebox, because I am dying to hear about Oof.
Such a great choice. So the song is Oof by Interwave. The reason why I picked this song, I couldn't decide. There's been so many things in the NBA recently that, quite frankly, have befuddled me. I don't understand. And the NBA is my life. It's just like it's your life. I was born into this game, and it's my life. And I cannot even wrap my head around what's happening right now. So I want to just pick 3 teams: the Trailblazers, we touched on this briefly, the Grizzlies, and the Timberwolves. I don't understand how the Timberwolves. Let's start with them first. How in the world? You're gonna You're going to pay all that for Rudy Gobert, which didn't make any sense whatsoever, in my personal opinion. He's a fantastic defensive player, but to demand what he demanded was just flabbergasting. It was piracy. Yes. We were watching literally like piracy. And then to give Anthony Edwards the contract that they gave him, to be very clear, like he's the future of the team. To me, I'm thinking, well, what does that mean for Karl-Anthony Towns? Like, what does this mean for and then you gave up D'Angelo Russell. Like, what is happening here? Like, whose team is this? Where is it going? I have no idea. There are so many mixed signals that I have no idea where the direction of this franchise is going. Would you like to weigh in on that?
Only that, I will say that you should give Towns that money. No, Anthony Edwards that money. You absolutely
you should. I agree with you. It's his team, but it's just a lot of mixed.
Yeah, no, it's confusing. I will say the other thing is around the league, everybody's waiting for the Towns trade sweepstakes.
And that's what I'm saying. You basically kind of jump started that conversation, but Towns, like, every year you're kind of wondering how good can he be? I mean, it's because at a certain point you're like this. I mean, his skill set's incredible, right? And you've seen him play well, but then can you build a team around him? So I don't know. Is he going to be more like a Kevin Love? Remember where Kevin Love came in and he ended up being really great for that Cleveland team. And even in Miami, I thought he did really well. I thought it was a great pickup.
Right. Yeah, right.
So maybe it's not Kevin Love as a number one option. Maybe he is, playing next to LeBron and Kyrie. Is that what Karl-Anthony Towns is? I don't know. But whatever's going on in Minnesota the past couple of years, the way that they've been spending money and then saying that we're building this team and then shipping people off, I have no idea what's going on there.
Yeah, I don't either.
So that's the first thing. Second thing is Portland. The message we've heard from Damian Lillard and from the organizations that we want to compete, which, I find laughable in the sense that, I just don't understand why they're doing the things that they're doing, if that is their intended goal. If that's your goal, okay, great. But I don't understand why Jeremy Grant, why you would pay him that much money. That to me was so confusing. And in the same breath, be like, okay, we're willing to trade Damian Lillard, which I understand is, like I said, it's going to happen. It has to happen. They have to move on. But to then get Scoot Henderson and then pay Jeremy Grant and then say this new team is going to compete more than we used to on a Damian Lillard team, I think it's just a step backwards. So I have no idea what they're doing over there either. I don't understand how they're allocating their resources.
Yeah, I would love to be able to fill you in. I have no idea.
And then last but not least, the Memphis Grizzlies. I know you love Desmond Bane. I don't understand this deal. I thought that Desmond Bane, look, to pay him as much money as they're paying him.
Yeah.
And okay, so let's just think about this for a second. John Morant, we have no idea what's going on. I have no idea what's happening there, but at least a 20-something game suspension to start the season, but they extended him on a max deal, right? Then you get rid of Dylan Brooks. Jaren Jackson Jr., Defensive Player of the Year, he's really taking steps forward. You get him locked up, and now you sign Desmond Bane, but to pay Desmond Bane that much money,
yep.
To me, that doesn't make sense. To me, there's just there's some sort of dissonance as far as what he gives you to this market value that you're ascribing him. I think there's a huge discrepancy there, and I think they're vastly overpaying. So for me in Memphis, I don't understand that move either. I know you got to keep him, but not for that much money. So that to me is kind of my take on just three quick teams where I'm like, what are you doing? It's just left and right. I have no idea what they're doing.
And wait, tell me a little more about Oof from Interwave, because that is not a song I'm horribly familiar with.
It's just I don't know how to describe it. I guess they're like an indie rock band, I guess. Are you into Tame Impala and stuff?
Yeah, I like Tame Impala.
Yeah, so it's kind of like Tame Impala-ish. Electric indie rock kind of ish. And the song, there's this one line where he says, who are all these people standing in my room? You made me famous. I just feel like part of the song is kind of a realization of okay, now I'm in a different stratosphere and I don't really understand what I'm doing at this party? Who are all these strangers? And like, is my fame, or is it because you might, because of my association with you kind of thing? So it's kind of like a gut punch. I think the whole song is kind of like a little bit of a sucker punch. So for me, these are just three. I could have gone on. There's like a list of like 10 teams. I'm just like, I'm being sucker punched from like, I don't understand any of this. I don't know who's in the room. I don't know like why am I at this party, kind of thing. It's just confusing.
Fair enough. All right. Now I'm going to go listen to this after we get off the air.
So anyway, that's that. What about Kurt's Corner? You want to do a lightning round?
Yeah, let's do a lightning round. Run through some of the stuff we haven't. Some of it we touched on, but I know producer Dan threw a few in there. Let's throw some questions and we'll just get through them.
Okay, so first one. Does Chet Holmgren have a realistic shot to beat Victor Wembanyama for Rookie of the Year?
Yes. I think part of it is, look, Victor Wembanyama should be the front runner, but the Spurs, Popovich, they're not chasing the playoffs. They're going to slow play this a little bit. They're going to slow play him a little bit, right? Like they're not looking to win this year. They're looking to build something long-term. If you told me with a Lillard's out in Portland and Scoot's getting the ball for 60, 80 possessions a game, I think he's got a shot. I think Chet Holmgren playing off of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in Oklahoma City, where they're going to be better than people think this year. Yeah, I think somebody can actually get past Wembanyama for Rookie of the Year. Like if I were a betting man, I would be serious about those markets.
Wow. I think there's no way. I think Wembanyama is going to win. I mean, because think about it, like when they got the other two number one overall. So like my dad, they were a bad team, 20 wins. And then my dad came to the team, they were 50-something wins, like immediately, right? And then Tim Duncan, within 2 years, Tim Duncan was a Finals MVP. They won a championship, right? So my point is that, like, if you're talking about like the lineage which Wembanyama is inheriting, it's one that is you turn a 20-win team into an immediate contender and playoff team, like within the first year. So that's kind of why I think he's going to win.
I'm trying to find a reason to make the race interesting because I think it's probably just Wembanyama, like you said, running away with it.
So is Anthony Edwards now the official face of the Timberwolves?
Yes, absolutely. And as we discussed before, like I think Towns is a year from now when we're having these conversations, I seriously doubt Karl Anthony Towns is a Timberwolf player. He'll be wherever, but he will be somewhere else.
Yeah, I agree, unfortunately. Who will impact their team the most? Bradley Beal, Kristaps Porzingis, Chris Paul, or Jordan Poole?
Poole, by the way, will be your fantasy favorite. He's just going to put up ridiculous numbers because somebody's got to shoot there. I'm going to say Porzingis because it's either going to, as we discussed before, it's either going to be really good or really bad. Like he's going to impact that team and Boston's chances of winning dramatically one way or the other this season. It's not going to be the same old. I'm not sure how much Beal helps the Suns. I mean, he makes them better. But he's a really expensive third option, man.
That's how I feel. No, I think, remember, like Aaron Gordon joined the Denver Nuggets. That to me is like the role that Bradley Beal is coming in. Not the exact same role, but that kind of where you already got like the first, in my mind, depending on what they do with DeAndre Ayton, the first three people. So it's kind of like you're filling that 3-4 role, and it's very expensive. I actually disagree. I think Porzingis will not affect the Boston Celtics. That much. I know that's what I'm saying. This is why I'm shocked to say this out loud. But like it happened in Dallas when you're playing next to Luka. Like crazy numbers. I don't think the team will be affected one way or the other, which is going to be shocking. But I do agree. I think that's why I think. Yeah. So I think Chris Paul, he did it with Phoenix. Chris Paul made that team so much better. Yeah. And I do think Chris Paul will do the same thing with the Warriors. I think he'll steady them.
We'll see. I think I have concerns less about his age and more just about Chris Paul is the most walk the dog up the court. Frankly, he doesn't even dribble it. He just walks the dog up the court, pound the ball out top, figure out the matchups, point at the guy you want to set the pick, like set the mismatches in motion, deliberate. It works. High IQ player. He's very good. Like I don't want to knock it. But it's kind of the opposite of the chaos theory that the Warriors generate with their offense. So I just think it's a clash of cultures, and I'm less sold it's going to work smoothly.
Okay. The Bucks, are they still missing a piece to get back to the championship? What do you think?
They could use some more depth, but I think I still think they're a contender. I still think they, as constructed right now, I think they can win it all. I think they're good enough if Giannis is healthy. So he, by the way, just had his knee scoped in the last week, and that really won't impact the regular season, but it may keep him out of World Cup, which is probably good for you at Team USA because they're in the same pool as Greece.
Yeah, I agree. I think the team can win. I just think the decisions around the team, we'll see.
Yeah.
They're a team. Yeah. So do you think DeAndre Ayton gets moved before the season starts by the Phoenix Suns?
No, because nobody wants him. Nobody wants to pay DeAndre. I mean, DeAndre Ayton is a good player, but not at $30 million a year. Nobody just wants to. Everybody would rather have. Not yet. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't think he gets traded. I think they keep him. Frank Vogel does his best to turn him into a quality drop back center, and we'll see. It's just what everybody would rather have is the Clippers have Ivica Zubac doing a not quite as good job, but a solid role for $11 million a year. That's the center everybody's looking for. If you don't have Ayton, I mean, if you don't have Embiid or Jokic or somebody like that, that's the goal for everybody at center. Like, who can I get who's good and solid and unreliable, and I can pay him a league average salary?
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I mean, I agree with you. I don't think they'll move him, but it is interesting. Like, I remember I thought there was no market for Ayton last year, or was that last year? Remember when he had his when he was coming up, and he was on restricted free agency. Remember, and then the Pacers gave him an offer sheet.
Yeah,
and I was like, whoa. And then the Suns like immediately come back and they said, we want to sign you. And I thought that was interesting. I was like, wait, what? Like, you're trying to move him out, and then now you want to keep him because there's one other team that came out of the woodwork with an interest. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that this is a chance for him to do kind of I think this is a chance for him, hopefully, if he plays well and plays nice within the system, to set himself up for a nice splashy exit.
Yeah.
LA teams. Which one made the better signing, do you think? Clippers or the Lakers?
I'm quietly high on the Lakers. I'm not even quietly. I've been saying this a lot. I'm high on what the Lakers did.
I agree.
You know what they didn't do, Corey, was the mistakes of the Lakers past, which is you look good. I mean, you reach the Western Conference Finals, you show this potential, then you get, the Nuggets show you what the next gear is and what you're going to have to do. And the Lakers' traditional MO is let's go get a bright, shiny object. And, Kyrie's been sitting courtside, like to do something like that would have been a little too Laker. And this time they're like, no, going to re-sign Reeves, going to re-sign Hachimura. I love the Gabe Vincent pickup as the kind of gritty point guard. Yeah, I like pretty much everything they did this offseason. I think they got better. I will add, I'm not as high on them. I know I'm in Los Angeles, so maybe it's just what I'm hearing here. My gosh, we're contenders. We had this really good offseason. I'm like, I don't think the Lakers high, their peak is as high as Denver's or as high as Phoenix, probably not as high as the Warriors. Memphis is the theoretical high of Memphis. Sure. Like, I don't know that they can ever get there. Like, I'm higher on them than you are just because I think picking up Marcus Smart to put in that locker room and Derrick Rose, by the way, as a pickup, like, I think were smart moves, but it's a long way from them being but that's being said, like, I think the Lakers are fourth or fifth best team in the West. We didn't even mention Sacramento, who bringing everybody back. Like, so they're good. I just don't know how good, but I really liked their offseason. The Clippers, even when they land James Harden, I mean, Corey, what do you think? Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, and Paul George, man.
Yeah, I plead the fifth. I think the Lakers, I agree with you. I think they told us what they're going to do. We're going to sign these young core guys. And that's exactly what they did. Yeah. So like Rob Pelinka did not lie. Like, they did exactly what they wanted to do. I thought they overachieved last year. I thought the free agency moves that they made they made them a pretty good team. And now I think keeping it together, they're still a good team. I don't think they're contenders, but I think that they're like a good team, which is great. I think they made some really good, smart moves. Now on the other side, the Clippers, I think the one move that they made, which was really interesting, I thought it was a steal, was re-signing Westbrook for like $3.5 million a year on the 2-year deal. Like the fact that, I mean, we're talking about a former MVP who like has played well. Like, he, especially for the Clippers team too. Like, and even for LA, I know a lot of Lakers fans wouldn't appreciate me saying that, but he was playing, I think it was like 18. He's almost like a triple double off the bench. Like he was giving you valuable stat sheet numbers. And I think, and the Clippers, for him to kind of, I think this is a chance for him to reestablish his value, but he showed that he was a valuable asset to them, and they're only having to pay him $3.5 million a year. Like you said, Zubac is making $11 million a year. So to get Russell Westbrook for $3.5 a year, I think is a steal. I think that is like crazy.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I think it's a good pickup. I'm just out on voting and expecting them to be healthy and make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. And then last but not least, the Rockets. Let's be real here. Van Vliet and Brooks. We mentioned it briefly. Did they make significant progress? And I guess define significant progress, Kurt. Is that being a playoff team?
Yeah, I have to say, I would say significant progress would be making the playoffs, and I think they're in the play-in next year, and maybe they can play their way into the postseason. We'll see how the bottom of the West shakes out, but I think they're somewhere between 8-9, probably. So. Yay, progress.
I agree with that.
Yeah, like woohoo.
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree with you. I don't think they're a very good team, but I do agree with you that it is progress. I mean, so
they're taking a step in that direction. The thing that saves them long term, if you're a Rockets fan, is Jabari Smith develops into what the peak of Jabari Smith could be, and then that changes the dynamic. But right now, Jalen Green hasn't been that guy until I see one of their guys develop into that, and maybe Ime Udoka brings it out of him. Until I see that, I think I like Fred Van Vliet, and good for him to get in the bag for 3-year max, but the team's nice.
Okay, for the fun segment.
Yes.
Our producer Dan asked us, what is our ideal barbecue plate? Someone asked you, what would you get? If you're gonna go with some barbecue, what would you go?
In an ideal world, I'm a ribs guy, so I would want good smoked ribs on them, and then the side. You know what? Maybe it's just because I had it from a Mexican place near our place recently, and it's one of my favorite summer things. The elote corn, like a good Mexican corn. With the cheese and the sour. That's like maybe my favorite side now. So that would if we put that on the plate with ribs, I'm good. Like just rib and corn, I'm good. What about you, Corey? You're in New York City, the home of great barbecue.
Yes, I am in New York City, but I'm from Texas. I'm from San Antonio.
That's true.
And barbecue is very important to me. I would say So in Texas, there's something called moist cut brisket, which is different than normal brisket. And it's very important to make this distinction because if you go anywhere else, brisket is kind of dry and almost like jerky-ish. But in Texas, if you get moist cut brisket, it's juicy and soft, and it's like melts in your mouth. It's almost like those really nice steaks that are like so marbled that they literally taste like butter. They just melt. You don't need to chew them. Or I don't know if you've had like pork shoulder or pork belly.
Oh yeah, really good. Yeah,
melts. That's what good brisket tastes like, and for some reason I cannot find it outside of the state of Texas. It's like only a Texas thing. Whatever, I don't understand. So I would get tons of moist cut brisket, lots and lots and lots of mountains of moist cut brisket, and then I think I would get white bread, of course, that's a must.
Yeah.
And then I would get tons of barbecue sauce. Obviously, I love cream corn, so I get cream corn as well, and I'd get pecan pie with vanilla ice cream, some Bluebell vanilla ice cream. To me, that would probably be the best. But I will say this: you have to have something that can be microwavable. This is the trick in because there's so much food that's barbecued. Like you can't. I love turkey, but the issue with turkey is that I don't think it heats up very well.
No, you have to reinvent it. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So that's one of those things where like you kind of have to pick something that will be great because you're going to be eating off. You'll be feeding off of this barbecue feast for like the next 3 or 4 days. So you got to find, and that's why even moist cut brisket still heats up well. So I think it really plays. It's great hot and it's great as a leftover.
What were your go-to barbecue places in Texas? Because like I've been like the best brisket I think I've ever had was the Salt Lick.
Oh yeah,
outside Austin, but that's also a little bit of a tourist trap, so there's probably better spots.
Well, I just love Rudy's. They're the worst barbecue in Texas, and that's their logo, which I'm just a little sign. And I think it's great. The slogan is the worst barbecue, but I think they make unbelievable brisket. So whenever I'm home, I like to go to Rudy's. Rudy's is really, really great.
Well, I see. This is good. I need to make notes because I've got a feeling I could be traveling to San Antonio for games in the future. There seems to be something going on there. I know.
It's going to be awesome. Yeah, I can send you some spots, but there's some new spots too that are good. But for me, the old reliable is just go to Rudy's. There's this one location out of a gas station, which is like the most barbecue thing ever.
Yes.
It's like gas station in the front, barbecue smoke house in the back. It's just everything you would want. Everything you would want. Well, Kurt, look. We had a little longer today, 47 minutes, 48 minutes. Yeah. I appreciate the way that you broke it down for me because, like I said, right now there are a lot of oofs.
Yeah, there are a lot.
I don't understand. People are making moves that just seem silly, but alas.
We'll talk again in a couple of weeks, and I will have seen Victor Wembanyama in person, and I'll give you a scouting report beyond. He's tall. So
I would appreciate that. Looking forward to it, Kurt.
Take care.